right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to CX Nexus. I'm Nicole Saunders.
And I'm Chris Detzel.
So, Chris, it's been a couple months. We took a little break over the summer and we're coming back, and we both have new jobs.
Yeah, it's crazy. I haven't announced that yet, but yes, I'm going to have a new job very soon, just like you.
Don't publish this episode until you announce it.
Perfect.
This is your official announcement.
Yeah, it's my official announcement.
So it's bonkers. We're in a totally different space. We both made transitions around the same time. So I think that there's a lot we can talk about today as far as like how that all happened, how we went about pursuing some of our new opportunities, and really talking about like those first couple of weeks and how we're preparing for starting a new job.
Yeah, how does it feel? It's got to go. You were with your last company for 5 or 6 years, right?
7.5.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're telling me during the pre-show that, just 4 days later, you started a new job. Jeez.
It was a big transition. I will say, I wish I'd gotten to take more time off in between jobs.
Yeah.
And, for anyone that's planning a transition, build in some time in between things because it is a big adjustment. But for a variety of reasons, that was what made sense for me this go around. But yeah, as community professionals, I think one of the challenges is often our identities get a little bit wrapped up with the work. And I think that can happen in a lot of roles. But when you're the person that manages and maintains all these relationships with people, your identity can come really wrapped into your work. And it's one of the reasons that I think it's important, one, to make sure that you're always evaluating, am I setting healthy boundaries with my work? And two, it's okay to change now and then. It feels scary because of that, but I think it's also where sometimes it becomes necessary if you feel like you're too close, which wasn't exactly what was happening for me, but I do think it's a big shift. And I think in transitioning to a new company, there has been some of that sense of, oh, I built this whole thing and now I have to let it go and it's going to live on without me. And I'm going to go be part of a different thing. And that's okay. And I think that's hard, especially if people are doing that for the first time.
Yeah.
It can be hard to let your babies out into the world and let them go be grown-ups by themselves, but we all have to do it.
I love that you said that, Nicole, because, a lot of us, including me, you sit there and all day, every day, you pour your heart and soul into doing this thing. And for us, it's building the communities and the programs and things like that. And then when it's gone, or you go to another company or whatever, so you got to start over. You got to start rebuilding or building from ground up, not just maybe community, but the relationships that you have internally and everything else. So I think that this is where you wanted to get to is how do you start a new company and how do you really think about that? How did you approach it your first 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, I did try to do a lot of preparation for this. And the way the whole job change came up for me, I hadn't really decided to leave. I wasn't really looking for an opportunity, but an opportunity presented itself to me. I had leadership from another company reach out to me and say, hey, we're looking to build this program. We think you'd be great for it. Would you be willing to talk to us? And it was just a right fit. And I really had to sit with that for a couple of weeks and think about, oh, what am I leaving? What am I going to? The grass isn't always greener. It was a company where I didn't know a lot of people, and so I was a little worried about it. But ultimately, I decided it was time for a change, and I decided that the team that I was leading was in a good place. And I felt like I could leave things to them and they would keep it all going. And so far, they're doing a great job as far as I can tell. But in thinking about that transition, at Zendesk, I started as the team of two. It was me and one other community manager. And I eventually built up that whole program and built the team out and everything like that. And so I had gone from being a first-time manager to a senior leader in that role. And now I'm coming into this new company as a senior leader. And so the way that I was going to show up for this job is going to be a lot different than the way that I initially showed up for that job.
Of course it's going to be.
Yeah, I've moved across country a couple times, and those are always great opportunities to maybe shed a bad habit or figure out like what parts of your skin you want to shed and leave behind and come out as the beautiful butterfly in the new place. And so I did a little bit of that with this job too, and thinking about like, what lessons have I learned? How can I start even a step further ahead of where I'm leaving from? What do I want to do differently? And so I did a couple things. The first one was I made sure I got really familiar with the company. I read up on it as much as I could. I read news stories. I looked at their website. I read some management books, and I really sat down and thought about what is the impression I want to give off on day one? How do I want to communicate? What are the critical things? And The big thing that I knew is that I was going into an organization that's been experiencing a lot of change. And we're actually combining two teams. And I think we can talk more about this too, where we're bringing the customer marketing and the community team together as one unified team.
I really like that.
Oh gosh, I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to dig into it. But what I knew about that was like the community team had moved from a different part of the business. There'd been some layoffs in the last few years. There's a lot of things that have like shifted around. And so I was going into a team of people that had experienced a lot of change.
Yeah.
And were probably like feeling a little insecure. They're not sure what the future is. They're not sure if they're working on the right things. And so I did a lot of journaling. Like I said, I read, I thought about things, I wrote stuff down, and I came to the conclusion that I really wanted to show up and instill some confidence in everybody and to be a soft landing space and say, you know what, you guys are through the worst of the change. Things are still going to change a little bit, but I'm here to help stabilize and start building. And we're going to bring this group together. And I want everybody's input on the strategy and that kind of thing. And so I had a really clear and crisp message for my first couple of weeks. I'd also given some thought to what were a couple of the big things that I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time listening. In my first 2 weeks, I had a day where I met with all of the peers on my, like laterally on my team. And then I had a day where I met with all of my directs. And then I had a day where I met with all my skip levels. And then I had a day where I met with all of my boss's peers on the marketing team. And next week, I'm going to be shifting into meeting more of the cross-functional people. And the week after that, community members and some of our external stakeholders so that I can really get a full picture. And there's a couple of questions that I'm asking everybody. The first one is getting to know them a little bit personally, finding out what their day-to-day is, what they actually do.
Yeah.
And then figuring out, okay, what do you think is going well? What should we keep? What should we lean into? What are the challenges? If you could fix anything today, what would it be? What changes would you make? And then I'm just asking them, like, is there anything else you think I should just know about, be aware of, have a link to? And then I ask them for a couple of the people that I should meet. And I know that I'm really building those concentric circles of my internal network. And what's cool is by asking everybody the same questions as I go through this, I can start to recognize patterns and get a really good sense of, okay, what's true, what's not, what is one person's problem, what is many people's problem, and how can I start to build a roadmap around that? And then I overlaid the things I thought I wanted to do coming into the org and said, okay, how does that match up with what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And that has enabled me to come out with some big ideas and strategies right up front, which is, what every executive leader wants when they hire somebody new. But I had to do a lot of that very quickly. I mean, I'm telling you all this stuff, like this has been like the last 3 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
Just doing that.
Before, one thing you didn't mention was which company did you go to? And then two, its title and what it is.
Oh, yes.
I just didn't hear that yet. So
I am the new Senior Director of Customer Experience Marketing at Coupa.
Okay, cool.
So
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, we're still in the B2B SaaS space. They do business spend management software. So really helping companies increase their margins, manage their business spend, deal with their procurement. I know I've used this tool in the past at other companies and things like that. Really excited to be there and just learn a bunch of new stuff. And one cool thing about Coupa that I didn't know going in is there are a bunch of folks that worked at Lithium back in the day that are now in the marketing org at Coupa. And so what's really cool is it's got community just in its DNA. People really understand the value of connecting to customers. And this whole customer experience marketing team, the idea is, like I said, bringing together community marketing or community and customer marketing as one complete life cycle and recognizing that customer marketing is the end stage and output of good community engagement. If you're bringing people along in that community commitment curve, eventually you're going to get some advocates out of that and you're going to be able to produce those stories and those references and all of those great things. And so I'm super excited to bring these teams together. I've got a really talented group of people that I'm going to be working with. So
it's pretty awesome. And customer experience can mean a lot of different things too, by the way.
The name customer experience is like, what do we call this? What do we make this thing that's all joined together? But yeah, you're right. It can mean a lot.
When I certainly understand. I think look, I love what you guys are doing, bringing customer marketing, customer community all into one, because, at the end of the day, you're building relationships from a community standpoint. If we just go to that, you're building relationships with customers, maybe partners and things like that. But then you need case studies, you need references, and those are the people that it's a great feeder for that. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, I mean, hey, look, Nicole, she uses Coupa all the time and she does this and that and the other. She's in the community asking questions. She's on these webinars. why not ask her to do a case study for us, or just the programs that you can build to really drive the marketing, the customer marketing piece is to me, it's obvious. So I love it.
Thank you. I'm super excited about it. And that was honestly the biggest thing that attracted me when this opportunity came up. Was I just really loved that vision for it. And
Yeah.
at Zendesk, I'd already been working very cross-functionally between the community team and the customer marketing team to build out our advocacy program, the Zendesk Luminaries. And I think that was what caught the attention of these leaders. And here's where I'm going to make my plug for everybody about personal branding, which
Yes.
is to say, go use LinkedIn, work out loud, share what you're doing, share how you're thinking about stuff, share your successes, because it really is where recruiters live. It's where executives hang out
Yeah.
when they're looking to find people. And if you're not sharing what you're doing and building up that sort of corpus of your work, you're missing a key opportunity and a key way to network
Yeah.
and be seen. And Chris, I know that you said that as you were looking to change jobs, you were using LinkedIn really heavily for your networking. So let's shift focus a little bit and talk a little bit about your change here.
Yeah. Why don't we go into that? So my position at Reltio was eliminated. Unfortunately, that happens.
These things
And
happen, especially in tech.
yeah,
Layoffs happen.
yeah. And so when they were like, okay, you've got 2 weeks, and then because I had to train different people, or at least let them know where things were. So I started looking, and so I look, I'm an animal when it comes to, if I need a job, then I'm going after it. So I started networking with people that I used to know or had relationships with, calling them, texting them, sending messages on LinkedIn. I didn't post anything that I was leaving, but what I did do was, so I did find a job. So I started on August 26th at a company called ZoomInfo, and
Congratulations.
thank you. I'll be the senior community manager there, helping to build their community from ground up.
That
So
is so exciting.
it is exciting. But the way I got it was in this, and I encourage everybody, again, like you do, like we both do, we use LinkedIn by posting stuff that we do, maybe by our blogs, through the content we create, through podcasts, through whatever, right? Saying something smart, those kinds of things, but also messaging people. And like, for example, I saw the job online. And so I started scurrying for who runs that team. Like, I didn't
Right.
know,
Who do I
you
know?
know,
Who am I connected to?
found this guy that looked like he was the leader and sent him a direct message and applied, and nothing happened. So, but you have to be focused and hardcore about it. And then probably a week later, I sent him another message to say, hey, I'm not sure if this is still open, but would love to talk to you more about it. I don't think he ever sent me anything, but then I get a call from a recruiter, because I already applied, and then it went from there. But even during that one, I was looking for other jobs. I was emailing through LinkedIn CEOs of companies, CTOs, CDO. Like, I saw this one job for this data company, and sent a message to the CDO. Then used to work with this person at Reltio. I said, hey man, do you know this person at this company? Can you help me out?
Right.
Yeah, I can help you out. He sends a message to one of the leaders there and says, hey, Chris would be really great. So I'm getting people writing messages for me through LinkedIn, through, you know what I mean? He even showed me the picture. So I think that, look, LinkedIn is a huge resource, but you have to do the work. It's not
You
like
do.
if you just apply for a job, you're not 99% of the time, especially in the tech field or tech area, you're not going to get the job. You're just not. Sorry. You have
It's
to put
so
the effort.
valuable to know someone, to have that recommendation. And I know, and I've said this before, but as a hiring manager,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely going to go look that person up on LinkedIn, even if they don't include a LinkedIn link on their resume. I'm
Yeah.
going to go see what they have there. And so that's just an opportunity to share more about who you are and what you do. But two, if somebody does have a link to their LinkedIn, or better yet, a website or a portfolio or a blog that they run or a YouTube channel where they create videos, I'm going to go look at that stuff. And they're immediately going to get more face time than any other candidate because they've put that together and they've put that out there. And I can really get to know them a little bit more and see that information. And it's just so critical. And I think it's something a lot of people don't think about, right? We get immersed in our day to day. We're really busy with our jobs. Again, as community builders, we're super immersed in that. We're not thinking about our personal community
That's right.
and our personal brand and what we're building, but it's critical for career success to be thinking about those things and how you want to present yourselves to the world and what you want to share and what's going to be meaningful for future employers. Because let's face it, Very few people these days work at one company for their entire career. You're
That's right.
probably going to change jobs at some point, whether by your choice or not.
That's right.
And so it's really important to have this stuff together and not be trying to build it the day after you found out that you don't have a job anymore.
Look, I think something you mentioned was standing out. So certainly LinkedIn is a tool, but something that I think you have to try things. Like one example is, so I put this presentation together around how I built communities in the past from ground up, business outcomes, and everything else. And in that presentation, I now link it on my resume to say, read about how data can really help drive communities, right? People can click into that presentation and look at it. And then I have a blog that I wrote about my journey, almost 4 year journey of my last job. That I don't put the name of the company that I did, but here's what that journey looks like. And then in that blog, I link that blog in that resume. And then something that somebody said, even at ZoomInfo, was like, "Oh my God, nobody's ever done that." I was
That's
like, "Oh,
so
good."
smart. I love that
Yeah,
idea, Chris. It's so smart. And you found a great way to communicate your value and also show that you communicate your value, you showed your presentation skills, you
yeah,
showed some creative thinking, you showed proaction, right?
yeah.
Getting out there and being like, hey, you know what? You probably want to know more about this thing. I'm just going to include it right here, make it easy for you to find out about it.
I think that to stand out, you just have to do and try different things. Like, and sometimes, the one thing that I thought at first, I thought, I'm going to reach out to all these people and they're just going to be like annoyed and everything else. But you know what? Who cares? Like, why do you build connections anyways? Do you do it just to be friends? Yes, that's one.
Well,
But people want to help you, possibly, right?
that's what I was just going to say is like, I think human nature is to help. And
Yeah,
all you have
I
to do
think
is
so.
ask people. And like most people, if you ask them for help, they'll either say yes or they'll try to find a way to help, even if
That's right.
exactly what you're asking for isn't what they can do for you. And that's a lesson I learned as a community manager is if you go in a forum and just ask people to help each other, you'll get more people helping each other than if
Well, that's what
you
community is about,
just
right?
put it out there. Yeah, exactly. So it is so critical and so important. I love that idea, Chris. I'm totally going to steal it. Dear future employer, expect to see a slide deck in my resume.
Yeah, I'll send you my resume just to show you what that
Yeah.
looks like. So you can judge on your own. But look, nobody has access to that except for the people I give access. It's fine. And it was fun because I'm sitting there that week. Like I think I interviewed 7 times with different people, but at any given time, like during like a week or two ago, I'd see people in it. Like it wouldn't tell me who was in it, but you'd see these little weird dogs or whatever at the
Right.
top
Little symbols.
of Google Slides. And I'm
And
like,
people are looking, you know that they're in there. There's
they
value to what
were.
you're doing.
It was awesome. And
That's
you know,
amazing.
I think that one idea years ago, I didn't do it, but this guy gave me this. It's like, how do you set yourself apart? And what he did was he's looking for a sales job when I worked at Forrester Research, and so he interviewed with somebody, and yeah, he might be okay, he might not be okay, but he sent him a pizza, and that pizza it says "I deliver," and he called him and said, "Hey, this is your." He said something to him. He goes, "This is Barless, and I deliver," or something like. And so, and he got the job eventually. I'm not
That
saying you should
feels
be
that
crazy,
feels like a
but
sales guy tactic.
yeah, but it was, and they
The
loved it.
point is you do need to find ways to stand out. And also you need to demonstrate that you have confidence in your work and what
Yeah,
unique perspective you bring. And I think that there's probably a lot of people listening. I don't do anything that's like worth posting about or something. Trust me, whatever it is you're doing is worth posting about and worth sharing about and sharing your ideas on. And it doesn't even have to take a lot of time. Like you're saying, you need to be hardcore. I think you just have to be consistent. You don't have
I
to go and
agree.
write long
I agree.
articles. You don't have to do crazy
Yeah,
things. Honestly, most of my posts are reshares of other people's stuff with some commentary on it. But
yeah,
I'm always trying to give a little bit of my perspective, share a little bit of my thought. I also spend a fair amount of time looking around and engaging with other people's conversations and contributing to their posts too. And it's good karma, right? It
yeah.
builds goodwill, it builds those relationships. And it's so critical. It clearly just played a big role in both of us having some new
Sure did.
career successes and some opportunities. And I think that's a critical thing for people to think about.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes whenever you go on LinkedIn and you might post something and maybe only get 1 or 2 likes, who cares? It doesn't matter. Just keep doing it. push it, keep learning. And I think that's the key. And I like what you said, contribute to other people's posts, say, even if it's like, hey, that's really cool. I really like that. Or, I do that a lot. And I might not have something super smart to say, but if you just get known and people like recognize you over time. And so I think that's important. I like to give credit to, like, when I was at the other company, whenever we did a webinar or something like that, or I call it shows, I like to evangelize the person that's doing it. Hey, look at Nicole in this thing, and just be consistent, do different things, and I think you'll get there. LinkedIn is a huge resource. I think we said that already.
Yeah. So Chris, I talked a little bit about the preparation that I did coming into my new
Yeah.
job, and I'm now 2 weeks in, so we can dig into that. But how are you preparing for yours? How are you thinking about that, given that you
Yeah.
haven't started yet, you're getting ready for it?
Well, I think it's not completely different from what you do. When you build a community from ground up, you have to do a lot of things, right? We already have the platform that we know we're going to go with, so I don't have to worry about picking a platform. But now I've got to start thinking about content strategy. I got to think about engagement tactics strategy. I got to think about people, right? The people are the most important piece. So usually when I start off, the last two companies that I worked for and did the exact same thing is I just got on the phone for the next 2 weeks, what you did, and started looking for my individual contributors, those that are really smart about the products, right? And so just those are your SCs, those are your product managers, those are your maybe even support people, it depends. And then I'm also looking at the key people that are going to be giving me budget for it, right? So or at
Yeah.
least who are my key stakeholders at the end of the day, right? So thinking about kind of that, but then also putting together a roadmap. So what is that business strategy from the top, from my not just the company, certainly the company is important, but from my department, what does their strategy and roadmap look like, and how can I tie that into it, and then just go, right? So I'm going to start building relationships. I'm going to start building. Then I'll start thinking about the tactics to drive content. So thinking about, like, all right, I've got to reach out to our current customers. Where do we start? ZoomInfo has a lot of products. So which problems do they want to solve first? Because, if there's, look, you can't just push a lot of content all there at once. It's just not going to happen. So
Right.
where's our biggest problems? What big things can we solve? And then start reaching out to customers and letting them know about the community and saying, the way I've done the last couple jobs is, and I've said this before, I'll reach out to 1,000 people, customers, let's say, or 1,000 users, and I'll say something like, "Hey, you currently use ZoomInfo's product, whatever the product is, and we're starting an online community, and we need your help." And then just start off that way. The way you can help is, you know, by providing content. So if you were to answer this question and just ask them one question is, if you're in the room with your peer when you first started using ZoomInfo, what's the first thing you would have wish you would have known and would have asked a peer of yours? And they give them that question. Boom, that's seed. That's so I'll get 40 or 50 of those, and then I'll be ready to post 2 of those a day for the next 3 weeks, right? On behalf of that customer. And then I'll email the customer before it goes out and say, hey, we're launching the community. Do you want to be the person that kind of goes in there and starts playing around? What do you call it? We'll give them a badge or whatever. But so there's that tactic, right? But then I know I want to start potentially a program, a webinar program. How am I going to do that? Or I'm going to find the experts. And so I'm already thinking about that. I'm already thinking about where I can go from past experiences and everything else, because those technical webinars drive community engagement, get the Q&A, gets people on, and those things. It's the simplest thing. And then just your basic community management, right? And then you just go from there and you build programs from that, and you get the people excited internally. Like, that is the number one thing, is getting people excited about it and just having that and showing that excitement and saying, it's going to do this, it's going to do that, but I need you to help to do this and this. A lot of people will say no. It's fine, move on to the next person, because you're going to get a lot of no's or a lot of, oh yeah, yeah, sounds good. But I've got to move on to the next. And then the person, like, I'm talking to Nicole. Nicole's, oh my God, I would love to do a demo of this, that, or the other. And boom, you're my first person. But then I'll say something like, in September 5th, we're going to do this webinar. You're going to be on it, and we'll have our customers on it. Maybe we only have 10 people. Who cares? But it will grow. and then I'll use that content to drive. Anyways, I get very
So
excited about it. I already know exactly what I want to do.
I
So
love this, Chris. You're so energized. You're so excited. And what I heard in there is like, you're thinking about who your key stakeholders are going to be,
yeah,
understanding what's important to them. You're thinking about your roadmap and like the things you want to do, some quick wins, as well as a longer range vision and having a strategy already in mind. I think you're going to be able to hit the ground running when you get there.
yeah, I might even next week work on a straw man strategy and then
Yeah.
be able to
It
plug
doesn't
it
hurt
in.
to show up with it.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was at Reltio. I just said, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think?" And that leader was like, "Holy shit!" Like,
Well, and especially because you're going into a building role where you're going to start from scratch and you're building
yeah,
from the ground up. And I did some of that too. Of course, I knew I was coming into an organization that had a lot of things established where it's going to be more about figuring out what's there. How do we optimize it? How do we pull things
yeah,
together than building from scratch? But it is really good to show up with at least an idea. And like you
yep,
said, a straw man, something that you can start to throw ideas against and start to shape it into what you're actually going to do. And I
yeah,
think that's another critical thing to bring up. When you're heading into a new job and you're starting a new job, you're going to want to be able to deliver some stuff in those first couple months. And you're not going to be able to
yeah.
do it if you don't think about it a little bit ahead of time so that by the time you're a couple weeks in, you can at least start to put some ideas out there of what you think you want
Well,
to do and what you can get the
yeah,
ball rolling on and that kind of thing.
and I think the other thing to think about when you do this, and same thing with you, but with that roadmap, that is a deliverable, a roadmap, a strategy, and a roadmap. Hey, this is what I'm going to do. And then you might get like a project management, not tool necessarily, you could use a tool, but I use Excel and I'll say things to get done, who's going to do it, and then I'm going to write them all out. I need a URL, I need to, the very tactical things that you need. And then, that way you don't forget. That way I know Nicole's going to go do this and I know Bill's going to do that. Jill's going to do this. And if they don't, just put names there. And then, oh, that's this person that's going to put like community dot zoominfo.com on the main website, on the docs website, on the support website. Who's going to do all that? Those are different people, right? And those are all the tactics you should write down to say this is what I'm going to go do. There's a lot of stuff to do, to think about, because it's not even there. Nothing is there. So,
Yeah. A lot to think about, a lot of exciting
yeah,
things to come. I think we've got some great episodes coming up talking about this whole space. I definitely want to bring some customer marketing leaders
yes,
on and do some interviews. I know we've got a couple of other guests lined up and ready to talk to us. To our listeners, you're going to start to hear some slightly more frequent episodes as we're able to get them
yes,
done in the midst of the fire hose that is starting new jobs for both of us. But we hope that you found some helpful things. As always, helpful if you can subscribe, share with a friend, leave us a 5-star review. It actually makes a really big difference in search rankings if
it
you can do
does.
that. So we'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, until next time, I'm Nicole Saunders.
And I'm Chris Detzel. Thanks, everyone.